Okay, we are reading the next chapter in Called to Serve, Autobiographies of Don and Doris Ann Roth. So we are reading from section 1, which is the first half of the book that Dad wrote. Chapter 7, East Pennsylvania Conference years 1950 to 1954. We served 4 years in the former East Pennsylvania Conference. Years later, it merged with the West Pennsylvania Conference to become just the Pennsylvania Conference.
Oh.
I had a steep learning curve as a Roth college graduate who inherited a conference departmental responsibility. I visited churches, interviewed pastors and district leaders, and learned how to deal with local church press secretaries.
You did that?
No, your husband did that.
Oh.
So it was right when he got out of college. He was hired by the East Pennsylvania Conference.
Do you want this or I'll
No,
just put it
you can
down
put that
there?
down.
Don't want to crowd you.
At least a dozen of my best press secretaries were old enough to be my parents. I also made numerous contacts with public high schools on behalf of the temperance work of the church. And so here's a photo of the staff of the East Pennsylvania Conference in 1951 in Reading, Pennsylvania. Don is at the far left second row, right there. Okay, so I'm going to show the picture to the video. Okay. In-gathering assignment. One day, conference president Unruh invited me into his office to tell me that he had a special assignment for me. A district had no pastor, and it was harvest in-gathering time. He asked me to be the temporary pastor of the York Church and take care of their in-gathering program before a new pastor arrived.
York.
In York, Pennsylvania.
Huh.
He told me that the York Church had not reached this goal for a number of years. What a challenge. A church to pastor, a sermon to prepare weekly, members to visit, plus a financial goal to reach for humanitarian aid and foreign mission work. I really did not look forward to this new assignment, but I had no choice. Shortly after I arrived in York, I drew up a plan for business and house-to-house solicitation.
In York.
Along with singing bands for the church school children. Early in my York stay, I read in the York newspaper that on the following Sunday, there would be a big horse race at a nearby racetrack. They expected several thousand persons to attend and bet on their favorite horses. I thought, what a terrific opportunity to reach a lot of people in a short period of time. The betting fans all would have money in their pockets. I asked 2 of the ladies of the church to go with me on Sunday morning. Although very puzzled and not knowing what they were getting into with this new young pastor with strange ideas, they readily agreed. I gave them cans and papers and stayed
And
nearby.
that was you?
No, that was your husband.
Oh.
That was Dad after he graduated from college.
Oh.
I gave them cans and papers and stayed nearby on the parking lot to watch in case anything went wrong. So this is 1950 or 51. That was like 8 or 7 years before I was born. So it wasn't me. In a very short time, Mrs. Wilt came back to our car with her can full of money. What excitement.
W-I-L-K?
No, W-I-L-T, Wilt.
Wilt.
What excitement. We dumped
Somebody
that Dad worked with for in-gathering in 1950 or 51.
Yeah.
We raced back to the cars as they arrived one by one.
There was a Lorraine Wilt.
That maybe is her. It doesn't say her first name here. Within a couple hours, the racing fans had all arrived, and we went back to the church to count the money. To our amazement, the ladies had collected half of the church's goal for that year. Needless to say, I had no trouble finding ladies to go the following Sunday.
No what?
No trouble.
No trouble.
Finding ladies to go the following Sunday to the same racetrack. It proved to be a repeat performance, but this time, with twice as many solicitors, the total amount collected piled high in the box in the trunk. I went back to my room and called Elder Unruh to tell him that at the end of our second week in York, the goal had been raised. He was overjoyed, but wanted me to stay on with the church for a few more weeks until the new pastor arrived. More in-gathering. That took place in 1951. In 1952, he gave me the same type of assignment at the West Chester Church, and in 1953,
West Chester.
West Chester. in 1953 in the Drum-Scranton area in the northern part of the conference. I found no racetracks in either place, so the job was harder to accomplish, but we did manage to reach our goals. The beginning of Blue Mountain Academy. The relocation of Philadelphia Academy stood high on Elder Unruh's priority list.
That's important.
Yeah, because I went to Blue Mountain Academy and graduated from there. The relocation of Philadelphia Academy stood high on Elder Unruh's priority list, the largest project during the years I worked in that area. The conference committee put me on a locating committee to find land for a new boarding school. We found a suitable site at the Blue Mountain Dairy near Hamburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, I remember that place.
Okay, I do too. Every person on the conference staff was assigned specific churches as we began a major fundraising program to build a new school.
That's an important thing about changing location.
From Philadelphia Academy to Blue Mountain Academy. Thus, Blue Mountain Academy opened in 1955 and has been a functioning school ever since. A functioning school ever since in a beautiful location near the Blue Mountains. And I happen to know that it is still functioning because it was our 45th reunion for my class of 1977. I did not go to that, but the school is still operating. Okay, the next section, Tell Nussbaum. During our days in East Pennsylvania, I had my first introduction to national politics. Tell Nussbaum, a watch repairman, was my press secretary as well as a friend in the Lancaster church.
Press
secretary. Tell knew practically everyone in town. Over the years, he extended his influence to other parts of the state and country. His politics with the Democratic Party included admiration for Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of the President of the United States. Unable to travel much.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yep. Unable to travel much because of polio in his younger years, Franklin Roosevelt depended on his wife to get around the country. Tell met Mrs. Roosevelt at a political dinner in Lancaster. He attended all major Democratic functions in his city and county. Somehow he secured 2 tickets for a reception that the Democratic National Committee gave in honor of Mrs. Roosevelt at the time of their national convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Tell called me at the office one day and invited me to accompany him to New Jersey to attend the reception as his guest. How could I turn down such an invitation? But what's so funny, that Dad was a Republican his whole life. And here he went to the Democratic National Committee event. Although he did vote for John F. Kennedy. Okay, my first visit to Atlantic City. The day in Atlantic City was an eye-opener into the ways of politics and politicians. Tell shook hands everywhere he went as we walked up and down the famous Atlantic City boardwalk. We then headed for the reception held in a local hotel, stood in line for nearly an hour, and finally we met the former First Lady of the nation. I shook hands and moved on after greeting the famous Eleanor, world traveler, and herself an active politician.
Well, that was exciting for you.
For Dad. Dad is the one that did that.
Oh.
Since President Roosevelt had polio and could not travel very well, Eleanor roamed the country and the world for him during his 3+ terms of service as president of our nation. She remembered Tell as he greeted her, and then he called me back and introduced me. He took such a long time that one of the expediters asked us to move along so that others could greet the First Lady. Unfortunately, we had not arranged for anyone to take our picture with Mrs. Roosevelt. Parents once again. In 1954, we became parents for the second time. We welcomed into the family our second child, a daughter, Diane Arlene, born on January 28, the same birth date as my sister, Esther Marion. During my stay in York in 1952, I met the Wilt family that included a petite daughter, Lorraine. So that's who you were talking about, Lorraine Wilt.
Wilt.
Yes. Her parents wanted her to attend junior academy in Reading, but did not have a place for her to stay. After consulting with Doris for quite some time, we decided to invite Lorraine to stay with us and help her with the children when she had time after school. So Lorraine became our, quote, adopted daughter, and we have been friends with her through these many years. Lorraine and her husband Carl Selby are now retired in Fort White, Florida. She is now an accomplished portrait and landscape artist, seamstress, and china painter. Our neighbors.
Who's this?
This is Lorraine Wilt. Our neighbors and fellow workers, Lynn and Marjorie Callender, joined us in becoming charter members of the newly organized Reading Ken Horst Boulevard Church. The church met in the auditorium of the Reading Junior Academy. Today they have a lovely church building in which to meet. Work and friends. My work took me all over the eastern part of Pennsylvania. I conducted press relations seminars in each district and spent time working personally with new press secretaries. Franklin Fowler was one of our new friends as I visited his Allentown, Bethlehem district.
Franklin Fowler.
Yep.
I think I knew him.
J. Branson Crispin served as our pastor in Reading, and we learned to appreciate his godly leadership. His son Jerry and family are currently members of the church we attend in Calamasa. He died in January 2007 at the age of 95.
He died. Huh?
Yep. Other friends we made in East Pennsylvania included Elder and Mrs. Frances Wernick, Elder and Mrs. Anthony Cator with their disabled daughter Lynn.
Who's that?
Cator or Cater.
Cater.
Kaytor.
Yeah.
Cater.
I think this is Cater.
Elder and Mrs. Abraham Ortner, Mr. and Mrs. Edgar Bradley, and Elder and Mrs. Charles Seitz, Seitc. Is that Seitz or Seats? Dick Fearing, our
Seats. Sounds like it.
Okay. Dick Fearing, our college senior class president, was in the conference the entire time we served there. We also made many friends among the laymen of the conference. In Westchester, we befriended Leon and Connie Carr, very enthusiastic and active local leaders. Now retired in Florida, they have remained friends through the years. Union Conference Call. In the spring of 1954, Elder Unruh startled me one day when he told me that the Columbia Union Conference president wanted to talk to me. Elder Dan Oakes asked me to come to Tacoma Park for an interview. The next day, I made the trip to Tacoma Park, and after a short time with Elder Oakes, I received a call to become the Union Public Relations Secretary, Radio TV Secretary, and editor of the Columbia Union Visitor. So we said farewell to our hundreds of conference workers and lay members and moved back to Tacoma Park, Maryland. After a temporary home on East Ridge Avenue, we eventually landed at 1206 Prospect Street, a Union-owned home with 3 bedrooms. Thus started a new phase in our lives. And 1206 Prospect Street is where you brought me home from the hospital when I was born in 1958. And that's the end of chapter 7. Any thoughts about what I just read?
These are very important.
They are
To
important.
hang on to.
Yes.
In fact, if you finish reading this stuff to me, I'll let you be in charge of the book.
In charge of the book. Okay. Great.